Okay. In a previous podcast, we were talking about the stage we are in at, and that we are entering to a new world, but we're not there yet, obviously. And I wanted to bring forward now the point of the stage we are in now, which some call bipolarity, you can call it dualism, being stuck, all those things. And we need to clarify exactly what this stage is before we can move forward.
Yes, the last time we spoke about this, the next step, which is which I refer to as as it were, entering a new world. Um, but indeed, the essence, the stage that we are basically at or in now is represented by the Pisces, which is the two fishes that are in the sea, and it's very important that we really get into this because this is really where we are at, and it's you hear a lot of extremely brilliant people speak about that we need a change in our thinking. That what really has to happen is a change in our thinking. I was just listening to a podcast of Bruce Lipton, and at the end, Joe Rogan tells him, "Okay, so what do we have to do?" And then Lipton says, we need a change in our thinking." And what I would like to do is really give an inside-out view of the problem of how to navigate this stage in terms of the person navigating it. Science tends to talk about things in external terms. The observer is external to the system that the scientist wants to understand. But in my case, very much, I am, as it were, navigating this stage, and I speak to this in first person terms, in terms of myself, and it's in that term, it's in terms of such an inside view that we need to understand this stage, because if not, remains very flat and external to the person. But yes, so the whole I basically, the problem at this stage is the problem of balancing opposites. And these opposites, basically, you have a myriad versions of the same yin and yang polarity that we struggle with in this stage. And reality, not to digress too much, but reality thus can be seen then as stages that the self has to navigate. And every 2,000 years we have another stage. And basically what this stage is, the stage of the two fishes, in which we can, I can speak to this in these terms, where we get caught between opposites in our life. And for instance, you have the two sides, like you have someone can be extremely insecure, and then someone else can be overly secure, overly cocky about things. So there you have a version of this polarity, and you find the same. Basically, you find the same polarity, for instance, in terms of depression and mania. The depressed side is the insecure side, and the manic side is the side that tends to become overly secure, too secure. And the problem here is that to talk about it in terms of of the first-hand experience. The problem is that we tend to have a great difficulty in holding the two sides together without being, as it were, hijacked to one pole. So you would find this clinically in observable terms, in terms, for instance, of when someone is extremely high in the high zone, very overly confident and manic, and someone like that, someone in that state doesn't want to come down, doesn't want to feel any kind of depression or insecurity. And we know that someone that is very secure outside is inside very insecure. So what we're seeing there is that there's a disconnect between these two sides of someone. Equally, someone that is very insecure, very depressed, doesn't want to get out of their depression. So they want to wallow in it and stay in it. And what that tells us is that this is because it is much easier to remain in one side. The real difficulty is in while being in one side, also opening up to the other. For instance, while being somewhat in the overly confident side, also being open to some caution and some uncertainty. And what we find here is a tension, and you can feel this. You see that I speak to this as a psychologist, and this is important because many quantum physicists also speak to this problem. But what is important is psychology is important here because it gives us like a first-hand feel of this in terms of experience, not theories and concepts. And so the difficulty is to contain these two opposites in ourselves, which are like two sides of us that try to pull us apart. And so actually what we're trying to navigate this stage, and as I said in a prior podcast, to graduate to the following stage, which I said one starts to realize in terms that one dreams that we are pregnant and then you get this baby. But to get to that, to start to get into the next stage, we need to be able to contain the word, the essence, the essential word here in these terms is containment. We need to contain these opposites, and it's very difficult. One would say that, so when I'm angry, I need to open up for some fear, or when I'm very confident, I need to open up for some insecurity. So like before I play a tennis tournament, I monitor my mind, my thought process. And then I feel at a certain moment I would go like I feel like I'm going to win easily. And another moment I feel very insecure. And that's the way the mind keeps jumping from one pole to the next. But to contain these opposites is basically to embrace the stress in ourselves, the tension, to find the tension and embrace it. And so I've said basically that if you can feel that tension in yourself, you're feeling the self with a capital S, and that's that baby, the man child, which is the cord to the world outside of the sea of these fishes.
Yeah, I want to add something to that because this is a very, very extremely difficult area. And it's an area that people tend to like to skip, or they will say, okay, I know I'm insecure on this side, and on the other side, I'm overly arrogant. I know this, I want to move on, and I'll just, I can help other people, and I tell them, you are this and you are that. And it's so dangerous because people are not aware. It's very easy, of course, to point it out for somebody else, what their weaknesses are, and you should not be depressed, you have to be positive. And it doesn't work like that because it's a inward process, it's a spiritual, it's a evolution that you have to go through, and it's almost impossible to do it by yourself. And it's very hard also if you would have somebody that, obviously, most of the couples, they would both represent each other opposite. You know, one is the inward, the extrovert, and the other one is the introvert. And to point out somebody else's mistake the whole time is obviously not what we're meaning with this, because it has to be something that the person himself, herself, wants to accept. And the way to accept this is to, what Dimitri does is obviously counseling, but maybe you should like explain people how you can get people in touch with this, because people just tend to fly over this, and this is the whole meaning of this process, is to understand your own polarity. Don't try to fix other people, try to fix yourself. And then how do we do this?
Yes, you see, that's a very good point, because what you find in everyday life, because the idea is to be able to facilitate this process in terms of everyday life, like, and what you find is that people, right, where do people come in for, as it were, help? Basically, you got to, that's where you need to be able to coach the process. And basically, it's indeed, people tend to get lost into what I call a first person perspective of life, meaning that they are basically looking at other people and other things outside of themselves. That's basically where, basically, that's the point where you know that somebody is not containing their own opposites. So I've developed actually a lot of tools, like a whole toolkit of how to rescue myself first. As I said, I am navigating this in myself, and my coaching is based on my first-hand experience. It's not like a scientific researcher that is studying it in others. You see, this is, I am myself going it, and that's why my tools are of a whole different nature than concepts and theories. They're more like, it's more like I have discovered the map of how to navigate this environment, this terrain. And then, so the first yes, what we tend to lose touch with ourselves and with this inner process, and then we tend to focus on others outside of us. And then, of course, then you will project your own issues on others. And then this is that is the way that you stop focusing on your own process. So the first step in I've developed a 7-step process in coaching this. And the first step where we're lost again, because you tend to relapse and to come back. The first step is what I call too close. Too close means that you're focusing too much on something around of you. And it can be anything. The second step is step back. So the process really starts there, in terms of this lived experience, not as a theory or as a research of others, but in terms of first-hand lived experience. You tend to catch yourself falling back out of the state of containment or being centered, and that's when you're containing both sides, meaning I'm secure and I'm insecure. I'm afraid, but I'm still moving forward. And I'm not letting either, as it were, hijack me. The first way you catch yourself that you're out of the process again is when you're focusing too much on something around of you. So whenever you're doing that, because this is basically a process of consciousness. You see, so